The crisp break of dawn on Monday, October 2, 2006, found Lancaster County, Pennsylvania wrapped in its familiar hush. A pale mist drifting over freshly cut alfalfa, the muted clopping of horses' hooves along gravel lanes, and patches of fiery maple leaves fluttering like tiny flags above long rows of late-season corn. In this corner of Bart Township, the old order Amish had tilled the same earth for more than 2 centuries, and their lives still moved to the metronome of sunrise, prayer, and harvest. Oil lamps were trimming wicks in kitchens. The first loaves of sweet bread were cooling on pine racks, and children dressed in plain blues and blacks stepped into pony carts for the short ride to the little white schoolhouse that crowned a gentle rise known locally as West Nickel Mines. The building itself, hardly bigger than a country chapel, stood by a split-rail fence and a lone sugar maple that had watched many seasons pass. No phone lines touched its walls, no electric wires hummed overhead. Inside were rough pine floors, 2 wood-burning stoves, a chalkboard that stretched nearly the whole front wall, and rows of handcrafted desks that bore tiny carvings of initials from earlier classes. On that morning, 26 pupils, 1st through 8th grade, filed through the single door after recess, cheeks pink from the cold, smelling faintly of hay and orchard apples. Their 20-year-old teacher, Emma May Zook, rang a brass bell to settle them. Hymnals closed. Slates were wiped clean. The routine of arithmetic drills resumed, just as it had on thousands of unremarkable Amish school days before. 15 minutes away, another household was waking beneath far darker clouds. Charles Carl Roberts, 432, rose before sunrise in the modest ranch house he shared with his wife, Marie, and their 3 small children. To neighbors he was quiet, polite, forever respectful. The milkman, a part-time driver who hauled raw milk from Amish farms to the dairy plant in nearby Strasburg. Thin-framed, with round glasses and prematurely graying hair, he blended easily into Lancaster's unhurried rhythm. Yet for 9 years he had carried an invisible weight. The death of his first child, Elise Victoria, born 17 weeks premature in 1997 and gone within 20 minutes. Something in him splintered that night. He spoke of the moment rarely, but when he did his voice turned flat, his eyes distant. Anger toward God, an emotion the Amish call Hakmit, sinful pride, took root, while self-loathing and fantasies of violence grew like mold in a sealed room. Marie saw mood swings, silences that lasted hours, fits of restless energy that sent him pacing the hallway after midnight, but she never saw the shape of the storm brewing behind his eyes. He hid his research on the family computer behind innocuous file names, diagrams of schoolhouse floor plans, police radio response protocols, lurid fantasies typed into late-night search bars, and finally online orders for ammunition and supplies. In early September he purchased a Springfield XD9 semi-automatic pistol, slipped boxes of hollow-point cartridges into a duffel, and added a used Browning 12-gauge pump shotgun and a Remington .3006 deer rifle inherited from his father. He drilled a 2x6 board with 10 evenly spaced eye hooks, practiced threading plastic zip ties through them, and rehearsed loading and racking each weapon until the motions became muscle memory. On the evening of Sunday, October 1st, Roberts bathed the children, read Goodnight Moon, and lingered over their beds a beat longer than usual. When Marie asked if something was wrong, he kissed her forehead and said only, "Tomorrow will be a long day." Before dawn he penned 4 letters, one for Marie and one for each child, apologizing for the monstrosity he felt inside and for the devastation he was about to unleash. Taping the envelopes to the dresser, he dressed in dark jeans and a work shirt, loaded his pickup with weapons, a stun gun, 2 knives, a length of heavy chain, a jar of KY jelly, a change of clothes and rolls of silver duct tape. At 9:49 a.m. he kissed Marie goodbye, whispered, "I love you," and said he had an early milk run. Instead he drove south along Mine Road toward the school whose families had trusted him for years. Shortly after 10:20 a.m., the children inside West Nickel Mines were solving multiplication problems when they heard the crunch of gravel. Roberts parked his truck facing downhill for a rapid exit, back to the front porch, and walked in carrying a clipboard. He smiled and told Emma he'd lost a clevis pin from his tanker hose and wanted to check the floor. The students glanced up, recognized him, and returned to their sums. He stepped back outside, retrieved his duffel, the board with eye hooks and a bundle of plastic ties, and re-entered, sliding the deadbolt behind him. His voice changed. "Boys, I need your help." Startled, The 11 boys obeyed as he directed them to bring in 2 pieces of lumber and a coil of chain. Another mother visiting with her infant, plus Emma's mother who taught across the county, were ordered to follow the boys out. 2 toddlers crawling near the back wall were lifted gently and placed in their mother's arms. Emma, sensing danger, ushered the women out a side door and broke into a sprint across pasture toward the nearest phone. The girls, 10 of them ages 6 to 13, remained eyes wide as Robert slid boards across the door, hammered them into place with a claw hammer from his belt, and drew the green roller shades against the autumn light. He lined the girls shoulder to shoulder against the chalkboard, tied ankles first, then wrists, then threaded each zip tie through an eye hook on the plank now leaning horizontally at their feet. The oldest, Marion Stoltzfus Fisher, whispered Psalm 23 while her sister Barbara squeezed her hand. At 10:36 a.m. Amos Smoker, on whose farm the teacher had fled, relayed Emma's breathless words to the county dispatcher. Gunmen in the school, children hostage, Amish school on West Nickel Mines Road. Sirens wailed from Quarryville. Troopers raced north. County medics scrambled helicopters from Hershey and Christiana hospitals. Inside, the ritual of control accelerated. Roberts placed the stun gun and KY jelly on the teacher's desk, a chilling hint at crimes he intended if time allowed. He walked the row, brushing stray strands of hair from the girls' foreheads, murmuring that he was so very sorry for what was coming. At 10:55 a.m. he dialed 911 from his cell, his tone eerily calm. "If the police don't back off in 2 seconds, I'm going to kill every one of these girls." The dispatcher stalled, asking his name, but he hung up. He called Marie next. "I'm not coming home," he told her between sobs. "I'm angry at God and I need to punish him." Marie pleaded, her voice cracking as their toddler cried in the background. Roberts ended the call by whispering, "Pray for me." Outside, State Police tactical troopers (SIRT) stacked on the southwest corner, shields up. A negotiator tried the loud hailer. "Charles, this is Corporal Fisher. We're prepared to listen. Release the children." The reply was one thunderous shotgun blast through the window, scattering shards and peppering a trooper's shield with pellets. A second blast followed. Negotiators knew the calculus. Hostage-takers who begin shooting rarely stop. At 11:05 they signaled for immediate entry. Roberts must have glimpsed the movement of black Kevlar at the window edges, because without further warning he raised the 9mm. The first bullet struck Marion behind her left ear. The second hit Barbara's temple. The third caught 8-year-old Mary Liz Miller beneath the eye. 9 shots in rapid succession traversed the line, then 3 more from the shotgun as he pivoted. The room vaulted with gunfire, with splinters and smoke. Children slumped against their bindings, windows shattered in counterfire, and the air filled with the metallic tang of blood. Roberts placed the pistol under his own chin and pulled the trigger. When troopers crashed through, they found him face down, the pistol still in his grip, the girls motionless except for faint, ragged breaths from a few. Medics fashioned a triage line on the grass. Flight nurses intubated 7-year-old Lena Zook Miller there on the lawn. She coded en route to Lancaster General and died minutes after arrival. 6-year-old Rosanna King, eyes fixed open but unseeing, was airlifted to Hershey Medical Center where surgeons removed bone fragments from her occipital lobe. 11-year-old Barbie Fisher entered surgery at Christiana for a shattered jaw and lodged bullet near her carotid. By dusk 5 girls were dead. 5 clung to life amid ventilators, cranial drains and silent vigils kept by fathers in broad-brimmed hats. Even before sunset, reporters converged like a second storm. Tripods in soybean fields, satellite dishes parked beside horse troughs. They expected outrage, lawsuits, demands for vengeance. Instead, lanterns flickered in farmhouses where Amish elders gathered, framing a response rooted in Matthew 6. "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." Before midnight, Bishop Elam Zook and Deacon Paul King walked up the Roberts driveway. Through the screen door Marie Roberts wept uncontrollably. Elam opened his arms. "We harbor no anger toward you or your husband," he said. "We forgive him and we forgive you." The bishop's own niece lay in a morgue, yet he spoke only of mercy. Marie later said it felt as if a weight the size of the world lifted from my chest. Within 48 hours funerals began. Simple pine boxes, no metallic handles, each carried on the shoulders of relatives walking barefoot through dew-coated grass to small family plots behind whitewashed meeting houses. Hymns were sung in unison, unaccompanied by organ or guitar, each verse slower than the last, voices quavering. The families declined flowers and headstone engravings beyond name and dates. They asked that cameras remain at distance. When Charles Roberts was buried 4 days later at Georgetown United Methodist, 30 Amish men in black coats and straw hats formed a human shield to block photographers, then stepped forward one by one to clasp Marie's hand at the casket. Money flowed. Checks from strangers in envelopes postmarked Tokyo, Johannesburg, Seattle, Dubai. A trust called the Nickel Mines Accountability Committee tracked every penny, allocating hospital bills first, long-term rehabilitation next. At the elders' insistence, a substantial share went to Marie and her children for counseling, college, and a fresh start, an act that baffled talk show pundits but was second nature to a community whose guiding creed is Gelassenheit, yielding one's own will to God. On the 10th morning, long before dawn, a convoy of horse-drawn wagons arrived at the schoolhouse. Dozens of Amish carpenters, fathers, uncles, neighbors, worked by lantern light, dismantling the structure plank by blood-stained plank. By sunrise, the hilltop was bare soil. They tilled it, seeded ryegrass, and left. No trace remained by winter. Only a slight rise in the pasture hinted at where children once recited scripture. That same winter, designs for a new school were drawn on oilcloth. Windows set high so passers-by could not peer in, 2 exits instead of 1, doors that opened outward for quicker escape. On April 2, 2007, the New Hope School welcomed its first class with freshly planed desks and a simple plaque reading Faith, Hope, Love. Recovery stretched into years. Barbie Fisher endured 7 facial reconstructions but returned to 8th grade, her voice soft yet steady. Sarah and Stoltzfus regained partial vision in one eye and married a harness maker at 19. Rosanna King's path was harder. Blind, cognitively impaired, seized by cramps that arched her spine. Yet every Sunday after church, Terry Roberts, Charles's mother, arrived at the King farmhouse. She fed Rosanna pureed peaches, read Bible stories, and sang lullabies her son had once cherished. Asked why she was welcomed, Rosanna's father replied, "When we forgive, we free both sides." Terry continued her visits even after she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She died in 2017, months after telling a women's retreat, "I meet Grace face to face every time I look into Rosanna's smile." Rosanna lived 18 more years, passing on September 5, 2024, after a severe seizure at age 23. Her funeral resembled those in 2006. Plain pine box, slow hymns, fields hushed save for cicadas. Among mourners were Roberts's 2 grown sons and daughter, heads bowed beside the very families shattered by their father. The circle of forgiveness, once almost incomprehensible, had closed again. Law enforcement agencies nationwide studied the timeline. The decision to breach at 11:05 became a case study in time-compressed active shooter scenarios. Police academies rewrote manuals, urging immediate entry rather than prolonged negotiation in shootings involving children, an evolution that would echo tragically at other schools in years to come. Legislators debated tightening background checks for handgun purchases. The bills stalled in committee, yet the phrase, "Nickel Mines Protocol," entered trainings from Pennsylvania to Oregon. Scholars, playwrights, and filmmakers gravitated to the story. The Amish Project, a one-woman stage piece debuting in 2009, explored grief and grace through fictionalized voices. A gunman's widow, an Amish girl, a traumatized witness. Documentaries traced the arc from carnage to compassion. News anchors revisited Bart Township each anniversary, baffled that no statues, no plaques, no permanent memorials stood, only an unmarked field and a sturdy new schoolhouse where children's laughter once again floated on spring air. Yet memory endures in quieter ways. Every October 2nd, Amish buggies thread toward 5 small graveyards before dawn. Lanterns flicker at headstones inscribed only with names: Marion, Anna May, Mary Liz, Lena, Naomi, and 2 dates: born, died. Families kneel, not in public ceremony but in humble, tear-soaked prayer. At some of those vigils stand state troopers now graying who shattered the windows that day. They are greeted with handshakes, sometimes hugs. No words are needed. For outsiders, the West Nickel Mines school shooting remains a paradox, an eruption of monstrous violence answered by an almost superhuman mercy. For the Amish it is simpler. They call it Das Gestion, the happening, A linguistic choice that strips away judgment and centers only on what is left to do: grieve, rebuild, forgive, and trust. They believe evil entered their valley for 90 horrific minutes, but it did not win. The school was rebuilt, the grass regrew, and the cadence of buggy wheels resumed. The scars are real, but so is the conviction etched into every heart that love, stubborn and unyielding, is stronger than vengeance. Thus the hill at West Nickel Mines stands today, a quiet swell of earth where ryegrass ripples in the wind, giving no hint of the screams once trapped between its walls. Children pass in pony carts each weekday morning, their laughter trailing through open fields. And somewhere, perhaps in the hush of early dawn, you can almost hear a hymn drifting on the breeze. A reminder that even in a world that often forgets, an act of unimaginable horror was met not with fury, but with the unshakable resolve to forgive, to live, and to let grace have the final, enduring word.